Welcome back to more of Coffee with Police Experts for Police Magazine. I'm Doug Wyllie here at ILETA 2022 in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm here with Colin Gallagher with Laser Ammo. You're teaching several classes here at ILETA this year, one of which is about courtroom testimony.
Yes, sir.
And, a lot of folks really don't get trained on what to do in the courtroom. They feel compulsion to be the most important person who has ever taken the stand ever in the history of courtrooms. So what is it that you are teaching? Of course, we're a gathering of trainers, so you're training the trainers on how to train their officers. But what are some of the tips and tricks and things that you're talking about in your classes and when you have interactions with other trainers about the court, what an officer needs to know about going into a courtroom testimony?
Well, there's a lot of things that go into it. One thing is that officers have to realize the defense knows probably more about the case than even you know. Most officers work a particular portion of a case, and that's where it stops. A lot of officers also feel the obligation to win the case for the government, the city, the state, whatever it may be. Also, it's a big faux pas there because they are just one cog in a much bigger system. There's a lot of things that go on where officers don't have the training and experience. And so we talk about in the training, we talk about how to set up a proper training cycle to get officers the experience they need even before they go to the courtroom the first time to testify. It's really important for officers for agencies to understand that we do a decent job of training an officer to be a police officer on the street in an academy setting. Some academies have a courtroom testimony portion, but it's not long enough really. And so when they get into field training, it falls upon the administration to make sure they get the experience to see senior officers testify, to pick up on some of the tricks and traits that both defense and prosecution will use. Officers don't realize that, they actually feel attacked a lot of the time because they're in a courtroom and the defense attorney is trying to do their job and defend their clients the best way possible. And so when officers feel attacked, they become defensive on the stand. And a jury, the judge, the prosecutor, and so forth, pick up on that. Yeah. It's like playing poker. There's tells that you have that you need to just learn to relax. And that's all part of the training.
And oftentimes, an officer will get, knowledge from experience, and unfortunately, it's literally, quote, pardon the pun, trial by fire. So, would you encourage officers and agencies to watch other officers testify? And watching someone do a thing is oftentimes a great way of learning how to do that thing. I've coached youth sports for many years, and I'll tell all my little kiddos, hey, you've got to watch this thing instead, and not just go out in the backyard and throw the ball around, but you've got to see how it's done properly and see the example of what it looks like to be successful. Is that something that you talk about in your class?
Absolutely. Actually, it's a three-pronged process. Yeah. They need to talk about it first, like you and I are doing right now. Yeah. Talk about the expectations and so forth. They should talk with the prosecutor. And I even recommend having the department have a defense attorney come in. That would work because really we get those defense attorneys paid. By making an arrest, if we didn't make arrests, defense attorneys would have no income. Yeah. So to talk to these different groups, and they will help you become better at testifying. Then the next step is you have them watch. And they can pick up and even take notes and say, this is what I noticed, and ask questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? And then the third step is, then they do. Yeah. Right? And it's just like anything else we do in life. We don't just jump in a car and start driving. You learn about it, you practice, and then you do, and that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and certainly there can be exercises where you're going to simulate something, and then if it's a large enough case, oftentimes you will have people in preparation for the case, in preparation for your testimony. You'll be in a conference room, not unlike this one, and you'll go through some of the questions that you're meant to be expecting, that probably the defense attorney, or in another type of case, maybe prosecuting, you're going to hear those questions, at least have had the experience of hearing them and trying to answer them once, essentially as practice, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You want to be able to understand how to answer properly too. If they ask you a trick question, and it's okay to ask for clarification. Yeah. One of the things that I found that a lot of officers haven't interviewed officers, they're afraid to say is, I don't know. Yeah. It's like it shows some sort of weakness or anything, or I just don't have that information. It's okay not to have that answer. The defense attorney may try to berate you and say things like, why don't you know? Aren't you a trained observer or so forth? Mm-hmm. And it's okay to say, I just not privy to that information, or I was not involved in that, or I just don't know.
You mentioned that officers, one of the things that they'll maybe fall prey to is they want to be the one thing that is the deciding factor in a case. That obviously is something that really no one has control over. In a jury trial, there are 12 people who are in charge of that conversation, all right? What are some of the other, maybe lesser known or maybe unexpected things that an officer might suddenly be realizing on the stand? I didn't expect that. What other little things that might surprise them could be, I don't want to say traps, but pitfalls or things that might trip them up a little bit?
Well, everything, there's a lot of different things. An officer can be called into question because of their background or prior experiences, even as, and another thing we talk about later is social media presence.
Yeah.
An officer doesn't realize that they will dive down and find out a lot about you, okay? The defense attorney will know more about you and your family probably than some of your own family members. So that can come up. Also the fact that a lot of times defense attorneys will try to twist your words.
Yeah.
Okay? That's where the idea of saying yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am is the best action when answering questions for the opposing side. Now, it is not your job to clarify what you're saying, but the prosecutor's job as well. So understanding not just who the role players are in the courtroom. Of course, we know what a judge is, a prosecutor and a defense attorney, but why is the jury bigger or smaller than usual? What are these other people in the courtroom? A lot of these things come into play, and officers need to know what their role is. And they cross-examination, re-cross-examination. But the big key is, of course, always being honest, because
Of course.
honesty, integrity, and the defense attorney is always going to try to, I say raise your
Habits.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to try to get you on defense. They're going to try to get you to be on edge. And I try to explain in the long run of training to be more conversational. As far as be relaxed, like you and I are sitting here now. You can sit there all proper and everything else, but it's okay to take a breath, and it's okay to laugh. Honestly, there's one thing that this is an opposing thought between different specialists, but there are a number of specialists that tell you if you can make the jury laugh, just by being honest, then they're going to trust you, they're going to like you. And if the jury likes you, as you turn to them as you're explaining something, if they like your personality, they like how you relate, even if the defense attorney is getting louder and more upset, trying to raise your blood pressure, they're going to see this, that you're staying calm, and they tend to gravitate to listen to your word and give your word more weight over somebody else's word who's more defensive towards that defense attorney.
Yeah, and it all goes to training. So here we are at ILETA, and it's all about training and training the trainers. How do you encourage trainers then to integrate these concepts into all manner of training in the law enforcement world? Because there's so many different ways in which you can say, you're doing defensive tactics training. I just taught you how to do a thing. Now you explain to me how you did it, what you did it, and how you learned it, right? So you have to be able to explain what it is you know.
Right.
So you have to integrate the concept of testifying in court into almost everything that you do in the training realm, right?
Exactly, and that's where going and watching somebody else testify, and then turn around saying, "This is what I saw," and you take notes. And you sit there and say, "This is what I saw. This was. I have questions about this. This was great. Was this? Why did he do this?"
Yeah.
There have been times that they're so new prosecutors, very green. Sometimes they ask or they don't ask the right questions. I've sat in a courtroom before where someone's asked and answered a question over and over and over again, and a brand new prosecutor fails to object, say, "Your Honor, that question's been asked and answered," because they're so green.
Yeah.
I've actually seen police officers on the stand before, "Oh, did I hear an objection?" Trying to get the prosecutor to go, "Oh, I object, Your Honor, because blah, blah, blah."
Yeah.
Because the officer actually had more experience in the courtroom than the brand new prosecutor. And, that's where the teamwork comes in. Talking with your prosecutor before the case, knowing the evidence, okay? Review your notes and reports. Do not rely on the prosecutor to bring your notes and reports, ever, okay? Understand that anything you write on those notes and reports and to clarify things or to bring things out, if the defense attorney asks to see those, you have to provide them, just so they can see it. They'll give it back to you before you testify, but they get to see what you wrote on those notes, all right? Always be honest. Again, I cannot stress that enough, because that is your credibility. And once you lose that, not just you, but every other officer in your department is brought into question, because you represent that agency and those training methods.
Yeah. I want to thank you, Colin, for your time. Appreciate it. Excellent insight. We'll come back and talk about a few more things next time.
All right, thank you.
Once again, come back next time for more Coffee with Police experts. On behalf of Police Magazine, I'm Doug Wyllie.